Hey there, everyone watching on Twitch and YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about stickings on the marimba and how a middle or high school educator can look at mallet music and be able to choose effective stickings for their students. We're going to be looking at the first cello suite by J.S. Bach. We're going to be looking at the Gigue first. Give me 1 second. I'll put the music up on screen so we can check out what we're looking at. So, how do we figure out stickings? Well, first of all, where are your mallets going first? We know that we want to keep low notes on our left. We want to keep high notes on our right if we can, okay? So the first sequence of notes, D to G, very simple. We have the first thing that we need to know about stickings. Where do we start? And this has a perfect D to G opener. We love it. So we already know left hand, right hand, here we go. And we have that D again, right? Perfect. And then an E. So alternating stickings for the opening. The way these notes are laid out makes it very simple. And then we have to make a decision here. We have two E's in a row. Do we do them both on the right or do we do one on the left? Well, let's look ahead. We see that the note after the second E is a C, most likely going to be played on the left hand. And so instead of having the left hand move E to C, we'll just do two on the right. Right, right, left. Okay, and then we have D, which we're going to alternate into. Great, and so we've learned that in the beginning of this, up to those first measure, we only have one double. Now we have a second D, and we might think we'll do this on the right as we did with the E and double it. However, we see the note after the D being a high G. So we're going to want to do that second D on the left. All right, so right, left, right for the repeated G, or for the repeated D up to the G. Now, this might cause some confusion in the student because they have to do double right and then an alternating. However, just by the way the notes are laid out, by the way this all flows together, we can see that that is the best solution, right? Because that leads us with this arpeggiated D, right? How we can alternate that through. Because we have up, and then the lowest note will be held on the left, right? So that's great. So we know we can, by doubling this, alternating that D leads us to that lovely thing leading up to the G here. Now the trick about this one, your student may find that they have to cross over. However, it's not so much they cross over as they get out of the way of themselves. This move here. Right, going from here. It's just a matter of shifting, right? We don't have to really do any of this, any mallet crossing. You just have to shift your mallets. Now, this is actually the part where I had the most difficulty figuring out the correct sticking. And it's also because we have to take into consideration Baroque ornamentation, right? We have a written-in trill on this B. We're still looking at the last measure of the first system. And so the way that I determined to do that is actually crossing over here and having my left hand above my right hand for that. And then the left has to move all the way over to hit that double stub. Right? If you notice before, I did do alternating for all of these. I did that just because that's what suits me. that's one of those instances. You can double the left, you can double the right. Doubling the right actually works pretty well for getting back up to that, getting the left hand down low, right? One of the reasons I do like that is because it gives my left hand time to get to that low G. Right, we're a big fan of that. And so that alternating. And again, the only other way I would do that is with a double right. But you can see that's the situation where there can be multiple solutions to this. Okay? Moving forward, we landed here. You have your right hand on A. You see the next note is an A. You might think double. Not so fast. Look at what comes after it. We have a B above that A. So we know from this double stop position, we want to move to this major second in order to prepare for what's next. And so we see immediately we can alternate. That's nice and easy. And then we see we have that double G and a low E. Well, if you look, that's exactly the same as what we had in the first measure of the piece. So we can see that it's very similar to that, and let's try and play it that same way, right? We use what we've already learned to reinforce and inform some of the sticking decisions that we might have to make later. That seems to work really well, and then we just double the right major second going from G to A. And we see that the left hand during that can stay down on the E. Right? So we see that there is very little movement that needs to be done as long as we utilize proper double strokes. Double, double, double. And that makes a lot more sense than us moving around a lot. Right? And so we can see just how clunky that looks just with that overhead camera there. You can see there's too much crossing going on. So as long as we do efficient doubling. Another reason I like that doubling system is it sets us up for this great little E minor leading to that. And you'll notice I can alternate through all of that. And it doesn't look too bad. Right? No crossing over, just shifting. Okay? So that whole section, double, 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 alternate. And you'll notice for that A major triad, we're doubling that right because we could double this, but I don't like moving from an upper to a lower manual like that for something quick. I would rather do the extra distance and have it all on the same manual. Because at the end, what matters is making the right hand here so the left hand can be down here, right? You'll see that as, that's the second system, fourth measure. Okay, so that whole section, double, double, alternate, double. Boom, and it fits together neat and clean. Okay, let's look at the next section. Okay, so we see the same sort of double strokes and everything moving up by step here. So let's just try it with double strokes. We know that it's worked in the past. Double strokes seem to work great. And then moving forward. We don't want to have to do that, right? So we're going to throw in a double. And what I like to do is I do it at the last spot. So you'll see with the alternating, and you'll see the double comes in there because that gives my left hand time to adjust and find that A. Trust me, if there's one note that you don't want to miss, is going to be that A, right? Because that's our dominant going back to our D here. Sorry, it was this, right? Functions as our 5 going back to our 1. So we see double, 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 right? And by doing this, you'll notice all of the sticking there works out very nicely as long as you alter. So, we see that by adding certain calculated doubles, we can set our left and right hand to be more efficient and in the ranges that they want to be. Okay? So here's that whole introduction, that first half of the Gigue from the first cello suite by J.S. Bach. Very slow. Woo! Now I forget everything, huh? Isn't that just embarrassing? There it is. Big double up there. There we go. I apologize for that little error there, but hey, we're doing it live, right? So, if anyone is there in chat, I think my chat is still working. I'm going to reload it. There we go. If any of my students are watching now and might have questions about any of that sticking stuff, please let me know. If all of that makes sense, I hope all of that makes sense. That's right. That's how we do it. We love it. So let's just work through the second half of the piece, right? I can just talk about some of those ideas. We get into more interesting decisions here, particularly with some of the doubling. And it's this part where being able to use your left and right hand interchangeably and sort of differently, where it seems the same but it's different, is really useful. Okay, so we finish down here, big fat D major triad. So just like Bach likes, as the Baroque tradition was, we're going to start off the second half in the dominant. And hey, look, we got doubles again. We're going to try and maintain those consistent doubles. We like that. And then we have this, right? Okay, great. So what do we do here? And I'm going to actually double this. That was actually one of the things that I got really excited about when I found out. If I do that with my right hand on the F sharp, and then doing the double on my left hand, the right hand stays on the F sharp, and the left can go down to that D. You might think, that would work too, right? But I found that going up to that B, going up to that C, I just found that I can actually D to C and then alternate up to this doubling again. Right? right? That's just a sticking thing that worked for me, but you'll notice that I had to take into consideration 3 whole measures to just decide on that one sticking. I needed to see how it fit with things before it, see if I could double into it, and see how things worked after it. Right? And that's what I came to, that's the conclusion that I came to. That's what works for me. And just notice, although I have to do this, and that doesn't seem super intuitive, just notice that my hand position can still seem normal, right? It's not like this hand is reaching across my body. You'll notice that I can still have good, comfortable playing position while still having to cross where my mallets are, right? That was, let me talk about being nerdy for a second. That was one of the most exciting things that I figured out when I could do that and then continue to alternate. And so you'll notice here, I essentially double everything. Or I alternate and then get back into the doubling that we did before. Because if you remember, I'm emulating the motion that I did 2 measures before. And then I do this alternating, and then we're going into a little sequential motion here. And so I'm going to do that left hand to set the right hand up for this D, high D to C motion. Okay, and if you look, we're doing next, and so I'm going to work on that with my left hand, and I want to bring that out in my playing because that's obviously an important functional thing in the music, and so I'm going to make sure that my left hand is accentuating those notes so it comes out, and it has a musical purpose as well as a technical purpose. Okay, so right? So we're doing this motion, and this is one of those great opportunities that you can talk to students about doing hands independently, right? Because it might look really easy, and it is pretty easy taken out of context. You're just doing a little sequential motion, but trying to put everything together and thinking functionally about how those notes fit together can be a little overwhelming. Okay, so a lot of times it can really help to isolate those hands. So again, that whole section coming up to that. And then here I had to make a decision about how I'm going to descend. And so you'll notice I go away from the doubling sticking that I use, and I'm going to alternate on that B, right? So we're breaking out of that pattern that we were. Alternate. And you can see the entire purpose of that is to set up this fourth on E, right? That's what we're really looking for. So again, sequencing, break the sequence in order to alternate that, right? And you'll notice that's the same motion that we did for that D major triad, right? And so we're keeping consistency between the way that we perform similarly written triads. We love that. Reinforces good technique, keeps our brain thinking at one gear. It's very nice, it's very comfortable, and feels real good in the hands. Okay, so we just finished with our little E minor triad going down. Now this bit is a little interesting, and I think you'll see why. We have notes next to each other. And we know right now that that's perfect opportunity for alternating. Notes next to each other. Great, we love it. And so what I do here is I'm going to double the quick notes that are on the same manual. So we see C sharp, D, E. I'm going to use my right hand to do this. And the reason I do that is, number one, it keeps these notes on the same manual, which we like, and it's going to set up my left hand to make a motion down the marimba for what comes next. Double. And so you can see I use the same principle there of doubling the right hand on the quick notes to let the left hand set up for what comes next. So just to bring you through that again. Double, double, double. And notice this one is really fun too. Keep my left hand on the A, move the right to the F. And that sets up that F sharp to D, right? I can keep the same sticking pattern. I just sort of switch up where my hands are. Which hand has which roll, and then I set up for that really great F sharp to D there. Moving on, we have a similar creeping up on A and B flat like we did with the E and F. Do you think we're going to do the same thing? Let's try it. Doubling each. That seemed to work, and then we alternate down here. And just like the ending before where we threw in one double, you can see the same thing works here, right? The same sticking that we came up with in, I believe it was the end of the first section, we can do the same thing here, and it works out in very much the same way. Double. We love it. All of the sticking seems to just be made for this, right? Throwing in that one little double. We love it. Okay, now the next section, this is when things get pretty spicy, okay? And as a musician, you have choices to make. You'll notice that it's this series of 3 quick notes next to each other again. What did we do the first time? We did left, right, right. Hey, is that going to work out this time? Let's check it out. Okay, so we end at G. Oh, we do left, left, right there instead of left, right. That's okay though, right? You know, why am I doing... Why do I do that? Why did I choose that way? That's what felt most comfortable to me at the time, right? The justification for it, does it matter if I do it this way or this way? No, not at all. Not one bit. As long as it ends on the right to give the left time to get down here, it's all fine. Okay, and then I have arpeggios. I determined that the best way to do this was alternating. Notice I do 2 rights on this one, right? Instead of 2 lefts because I'm on different manuals. Maybe that means that you should tell your student to do rights at the beginning instead of doing lefts, so it stays the same, right? If I do... Right? You'll notice if I do it with a double right at the beginning, it stays double rights. Right? And it actually leads better into that because right? You'll notice that by doing the double right, it's this. But then you'll notice I'm creeping with a double left here. To me, that's what makes most sense rather than doing... Right? That just looks... And I know that by doing the doubles there, it's helping me make a statement musically. right? Those notes can sound more connected to each other if they're played on the same hand, okay? So just looking at this section again, right? Double, alternate, double, alternate, double, alternate, double, double, double. Great. And so this next section, we can see, let's try and alternate. Oh, that was clunky, right? So we want to throw in a double somewhere. Right, again, that's with purely alternating. We don't like that. Where do we have the most time to double? Look at that. We have a great eighth note, D to E. And so if I double that D to E, that puts me in a position for that motion, that half-step motion, and then the arpeggio down. So there we go. That is how I go through stickings in particularly this first cello suite by J.S. Bach, the Gigue. Here's that second section done slow. I'll do my best here and try to use all the appropriate stickings that we just talked about. That one. Boom. There we go. That's how you do it. I hope you learned something from there. I hope that was helpful. I hope that in the future you can use this sort of method in order to figure out the appropriate stickings for your students to use, regardless of what they might be working on. Remember that these same principles of creating efficient stickings exist for not just every mallet piece, but for every snare drum and timpani piece too. As percussionists, using proper stickings is absolutely, positively, 100% one of the most important things that we can do to set ourselves up for excellence and performance success.